you. Wow. Hello, everyone. Thank you. I gotta give this one a hug. Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. So many people I've seen along the way. And hi. Aren't you sweet? What's your name? Margot. Nice to meet you. I like the purple balloon. Is purple your favorite color or pink? Purple. And did you go with Mommy to go vote today?
We only want votes.
Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you. This is day 1 of our bus tour, and I'm sure you all saw the bus outside. You can't miss it. But we are really excited about everything that we're seeing on the ground, the energy, the momentum. Just people are understanding that this election is definitely within our hands, that we know that as long as we are going out and we are voting, that we are going to win a week from today. I can't believe it, a week from today. Last time I was here, it felt like forever ago at this point. And I see the Chapmans are around. I want to say thank you to them, for opening up this space. I know that they are such tremendously large pillars in this community and always are opening up their doors and always wanting to make sure that the Democrats feel a presence here in this sometimes red area. Yeah, not always, right? But we are truly very excited. For those who haven't had a chance to see, a new poll came out this morning, and which is what we have been saying and what we have been feeling on the ground, is that we are up. And so that 4 points shows the momentum that we're feeling on the ground. It shows what people are seeing. They're seeing that democracy is slipping away, and that if we want to keep democracy in our state and in our country, that the only way is through this candidacy and through this election. And women are coming out strong, because we see what happens if we don't. And I'm sure you also saw the news today that a couple of hours ago that over in Escambia that an appellate judge refused a 17-year-old's decision she wanted to have an abortion. And she's parentless. And unfortunately, this judge said that she's not mature enough to make the decision for herself and is now going to force her to have this child. That's reality today in the state of Florida. That is happening today. And I know that we have the power to stop it. And the one thing that Dobbs decision did was it came back and said, the states, it's on you. And which means that we got to make sure that we are electing 100% pro-choice Democrats in up and down the ballot, both in the governor's office, but also on our legislators, because they're the ones who are ultimately going to be passing laws or not passing laws. But we feel the momentum, and so what we are asking from all of our supporters across the state, if you haven't turned in your ballot, make sure you turn in your ballot and go talk to your friends and talk to your colleagues and talk to your family members, because regardless of whatever the polls say, up or down, the only poll that actually we all know matters is on election day. And if we don't do our part, then we're going to fall short. So we need to make sure everybody is either turning in their ballots, going to early voting locations. They're open now here in Panama City until the 20th. So until Saturday. So it's from 10 to 6 all across this area, and then of course on election day. And what we are trying to really push is that more and more people vote early, because you never know what happens on election day. There could be a weather storm, there could be, something happens at work or a family member. So it's really important to be really pushing people to the polls early. But we feel the momentum. We feel it, and I can see from your enthusiasm, this is just awesome. And this is just awesome. And I can't appreciate you all enough for coming out here. The momentum is here. And look, we gotta protect our democracy. We know that this guy has lost his mind. Has absolutely lost his mind. 2 weeks ago, he's removing a duly elected state attorney from Hillsborough County, who's elected twice. And those people, he just wiped out their vote. And that is not what democracy looks like. And then a week later, he is supporting an insurrectionist. showing support for the search in Mar-a-Lago, and basically not supporting the search, supporting the insurrectionists, but basically came out and said that the FBI has been weaponized, and that's unfortunate because Donald Trump is literally the greatest threat to our national security. And the fact that he's supporting him. And what's happening now is also how we're going to win in November, because these guys are gone so crazy that Ron DeSantis is more focused on running for president and being out there in 2024 and campaigning across the entire nation. He is campaigning for people that are election deniers, instead of focusing on what's happening here, which is property insurance. Our insurance market just collapsed. Rent is out of control. While we're seeing gas prices starting to come down, thank you, President Biden, prices are coming down, inflation's going to start coming down, but people are still hurting here. And right now, we have teachers that are quitting in our schools because we have created a war zone and a battleground, and now he continues to make it worse. So we got to come back to reality, and that's when we're asking voters to come out and vote. So thank you again for being here. And I'll answer any questions or just conversation from them first, and then we'll come to the reporters.
Okay, what was your reaction to the recent polls of you being up with Charlie Crist?
It's what we've been knowing. I mean, we have felt the energy no matter where we're going, from here in the Panhandle to Jacksonville to Central Florida to South Florida to the Keys. We have felt that when a mother is bringing over their young girls to meet me and introducing them and saying she's running for governor, this facial expression lights up. That you will never feel in a poll. But that is what we're feeling on the ground. And so when we saw the polls come out and saw that what we are feeling is starting to actually get into the numbers, I know that we will win a week from today, but it's certainly nice to see it in paper. Any? Yes, ma'am.
What do I say about writing a check and getting a yard sign, please?
We will make sure that we get you that. Yes, I got plenty of staff around me that they can figure out how to do all of that. We've got supplies with us. We make sure that the bus was fully loaded with whatever you all need, signs, fans, T-shirts, all that good jazz. So as long as you make promise that you're going to put it out, we're going to give it to you.
Yes, I will.
So the property insurance is one of the things we've heard the most from residents here. What are your thoughts on how we can make this better, especially with a Republican legislature like that?
Yeah, it's actually really not that difficult if you sat down and actually come up with a plan and put it into action. So there's a couple of things, and this is going to go a little bit into the weeds, so I'm going to try not to make it so in the weeds. First of all, we got to increase the marketplace. We got to increase the competition. And so how do you do that? It's on both sides, making sure you're getting rid of the fraud in one respect, because we know how many people have been asked to redo their roofs. And then if you don't redo your roof, you're getting dropped, right?
They already, 3 of our, yes.
Right.
Taking
Right.
bids for 2 houses.
Right, exactly.
So my name is Ollie Goodwin, my husband, put in with the last little skirmish last year, whenever he called insurance, they came over. They came over and went up on the house, looked at it, and the guy came down. I was a prior military, civil service worker since 1990. Bill for Walter Beach. And the guy said, no problems, none, the inspector. 2 weeks later, because we had the roof like 15, maybe 17 years, 18 years, whatever it was. We get a letter in the mail. Within a month and a half, you gotta have your roof did or we dropping you. Totally insurance. House, no insurance. We went through the building and looking at people. It was awful. And okay.
Yep. And that's what's happening. And we're hearing these stories. So we got to make sure that we're holding the insurance companies accountable. This is not okay. This is not okay. And the other side, too, is that we are also the most litigious state when it comes to insurance. So you got to make sure we're balancing that. But going into the weeds more is that basically every insurance company needs to buy reinsurance. And the reinsurance international marketplace has become extremely expensive. And for our smaller domestic companies, they can't compete and buy this reinsurance. And so they're either going insolvent or they're having to be forced placed in this reinsurance market, and that's why our premiums are going through the roof. We have what's called the CAT Fund, which is the reinsurer of citizens. And so what should have happened is the governor should have allowed in the legislature our domestic insurers to buy reinsurance from the CAT Fund, which would have been at a much lower rate, but they didn't let them happen. Instead, the governor's plan is just put everybody into citizens. Well, that doesn't work because God forbid we get hit by a hurricane, we all pay for that. Yep. And we all pay for that, and that is not the solution. And so those are quick, easy steps. I sent a letter about 2 weeks ago to the governor outlining all of this. And of course, he doesn't respond to me. Instead, he goes and campaigns everywhere else. The other thing is that Citizens is got about a couple, I don't remember the exact number, but it's like $7 million, maybe less, in its reserves, where the CAT Fund has significantly more money into its reserves, I think about $12 billion. And so what should have happened is that should have been part of the process, but instead the governor and the attorney general and the chief financial officer voted to increase the premiums by 13% for the CAT Fund, which was another $150 million that then went down to the insurance market. So I've got plenty of ideas and plans. I wish that we already had a governor in there that was focusing on these issues, but on day one, in January of 2023, you're going to have somebody laser focused on fixing this.
I'm sold.
Yes, sir.
What are you going to do about the teacher shortage? Now, I understand the governor. I'm a veteran.
Well, thank you for your service.
Yeah, but he's using veterans to make up for the shortage of teachers. But we need not only teachers, but we need good, qualified, and certified teachers.
Yep.
What will you do about that?
Pay them more.
Yeah.
The salaries for our teachers here in the state of Florida are some of the lowest in the country, especially in these communities. We know that the salaries for some of our rural areas is lower than that even in our suburban communities. And so, one, I have made a promise in my first 4 years that we're doubling the per pupil funding, because that means that we get more money into education and we start to pay them. We also have to make sure that we're not creating a war zone for our teachers. We're asking our teachers to be the mental health counselors. We are asking our teachers to be the parents and the guardians, and to now bring weapons into school to protect them. And now they're concerned of what they say, whether they're going to be sued or not sued or fired, and they're being told that they can't teach history. So I don't blame our teachers. My mom was a teacher for 25 years. She loved being a teacher. But I can't imagine having my mom with a gun in her school and having to protect her kids. That's what we're asking our teachers, and then we're not paying them enough. So this is how you recruit teachers, by paying them. And I agree. Look, I'm so appreciative of our veterans, and I'm so appreciative that we're going to want them to teach, but they got to go to the same courses that every other teacher had to go through in order to teach our kids. And if they want to teach, awesome. Let's get them enrolled in our courses and our certification programs, get them into the classroom, but you can't just forego all of that and get them into the classroom.
Can I get a follow-up question?
Yes, sir.
I know just in Escambia County, we had the case of the teacher who quit because someone went in and took all the pictures of historical black heroes.
Yep.
And I think it's because of the Woke Act. What do you think about that?
Well, that has to be reversed, and I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. First of all, as you know, I talk very freely on the campaign trail. I come from the Jewish faith. And what we are taught at a very young age is, in order to overcome hate, the only way to do so is through education. It is to learn about each other, to learn about our differences, to embrace our differences. And if we aren't teaching about our differences, then people are taught the opposite, and that's to hate each other and to not respect the cultures and where people come from. So I know how important it is to educate and to make sure we're telling the full story. It might be uncomfortable to hear, but if you don't hear everything, then history is going to repeat itself, and we're going to create the tension that we're seeing on the ground. And then I tell this story too. My niece turned 13 in March, and we asked her what she wanted to do for her 13th birthday. And she said that she wanted to go to Washington, D.C. with Auntie Nikki. And so we took her to D.C. and we toured the White House and we went to the Capitol. And for those who've been there, you see that there's a video in that side of the Capitol of how the Capitol was built. And we know that the Capitol was built by those that were enslaved. And I sat there as my 13-year-old niece to my right and my 10-year-old nephew to my left. And I said, oh my gosh, are they going to be able to be taught this in Florida? And this is the reality of where we are at. So we've got to spend a lot of time reversing course over the last couple of years, teaching history, teaching acceptance. Look, the first thing I did when I became commissioner is created a diversity and inclusion position. I actually was speaking to my director earlier today, and she's hosting down in South Florida in Miami Gardens a roundtable with seniors, with black seniors down in Miami, talking about consumer services and ways of fraud that's happening in our black senior community. If we don't talk about it and don't teach it, then we're doing a disservice to the next generation, and we're doing a disservice to the culture that is the state of Florida. Yes, sir. Good seeing you again.
Yes. Florida's environment is extremely important to our tourist industry. So what do you plan to do in the area of environment and keeping our tourist industry going?
I mean, look, we know that Florida is ground zero for all things environment. You know, we're a peninsula. We've got water, you know, sea level rising, tourism coming here. And so one of the first things that I did when I became commissioner is I've got the Office of Energy. And my predecessor was very honest with me. He said, look, I didn't do anything with this position. If it didn't have a direct correlation between agriculture and the environment, I didn't want to hear it. So I sat down with my Office of Energy director and I said, your handcuffs are off. I want you to create this plan for the state of Florida. And so within the first year, she put together with her team of experts a 72-page plan of what to do about our environment. Everything from carbon sequestration, which is really important up here in the Panhandle, which is why we had to reforest and make sure that we got plants back into the ground. We had to make sure we're looking at solar, looking at Piney Point. For those who don't remember, Piney Point dumped 2 years ago 200 million toxic gallons of water into the Tampa Bay area. Why are we still doing phosphate mining like this? Why do we have 26 of these what's called gyp stacks that are across our state that are all ticking time bombs? In fact, I got briefed this morning that they're about to unload some more water back into the Tampa Bay from Piney Point. They're calling it runoff water, but it's a disaster. And when President Biden first came into office, we also put together a 30-page plan. And in that plan, working together with the federal government of things that we need to be doing to work together on some of these environmental issues. And over the last 2 legislative sessions, we have put together pieces of legislation to move forward on all of these issues to protect the environment. So we've got a plan. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, my department finalized rules to get us to 0 carbon emissions by 2050. I don't have the power yet to enforce it as commissioner, but as governor, I certainly do.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to ask about health care. I had a personal story, it's too long to tell, and I was afraid to go to the emergency room, and I almost died. And I would like to know why in Florida we cannot have health care for everyone. I'm a small business owner now, again, I'm going to launch my next business, and it's important for me to have health care, and it's important for my employees to have health care. It's vital for me as a small businesswoman, and it is a smart decision for all small businesses. Is there any plans for health care?
Of course. Of course. I mean, first we got to do Medicaid expansion. I mean, that is an easy one. It won't be easy to accomplish because, unfortunately, the Republicans have been taught to not want Medicaid expansion. I don't think that if you polled 75% of your legislators right now and asked them what the strings that are attached to Medicaid expansion, they would have no idea what I'm talking about. And so we've got to educate our legislators and have town halls like this in red areas and invite our legislators to come and to hear from people like you and say, I'm your constituent, I'm a small business owner, this is how this is impacting me, and get them to understand what is happening on the ground. You know, we went to Lake City a couple weeks ago and had a round table for a couple of hours. And when I was hearing in Lake City, they have no hospitals that can give birth in. They got to travel to Gainesville or to Jacksonville in order to be in labor. And so God forbid they start going into labor and they have a situation that is an emergency. they're giving birth in an ambulance. And if there's a problem, that's a disaster. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, it exacerbated the situation. We saw that those who didn't have access to health care, those that already had health concern issues previously, those are the ones who got hurt the most, who didn't trust going to the ERs, didn't trust getting the vaccines. And so we've got to make sure that we're focusing on getting health care to everybody. And that was one of my bigger concerns when the governor put together this whole plan, which really wasn't a plan, of how to get vaccines out there. And he went and did a pop-up location in the wealthy areas and then put it into Publixes, where we know that there's so many people that don't have access to Publixes. And so and those especially in our Black and brown communities. And so now you have a new divide in our healthcare system. So this is absolutely a main priority and one of the pillars that needs to be fixed. It's Florida in 2022. We should not be having these types of issues anymore. But I thank you all so much for being here today. It's really going to be important that we talk to people, talk to our friends, whoever you interact with. Go look through your cell phones and see 10 people that you maybe haven't talked to in the last 6 months. It's a great time to have family reunions and catch up with friends that you haven't spoken to and say, hey, by the way, have you voted yet? And it's really going to be all hands on deck. We all know that this campaign has been built by the grassroots. It's grassroots up, and that's how we get this done. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate you all. And do love that the first stop is in Panama City of the bus tour. I promised you all I was coming back.
You should take the bus and park it by the Trump store and take a picture.
I like that.
We do have one, and it's not.
Oh, I have no doubt you have one here. Yeah, absolutely.
If folks don't mind hanging around for just a couple minutes, we're going to do a quick interview, and then if we can take a group picture, that would be awesome.
Awesome. Hey, how are you?
Stephen Maxwell.
Nice to see you.
You met at the fire.
Yep.
Want a tag team or? Okay.
Hello.
Pocket. Flip that up.
You guys want that in the background?
That, I mean, the windows right there kind of.
So let's do it this way. It's so good to see you. Hello. Good to see you.
Yay! I know I got to get our selfie after you do your interview.
Of course.
So that'll be the third this year. So like.
All right, let's just do it there. How are you liking the new job?
I'm left to learn.
What? Oh yeah, that was
Dual jobs today.
Back on the road.
Thank you.
You know when you're ready. Okay, yeah, you were talking about that new University of North Florida poll. Shows you up, but it kind of bucks the trend for the past couple of weeks. Why do you think it's showing you in the lead now?
It's to say it's the momentum that we've been feeling on the ground, and there has been actually a handful of polls that have been showing this race tied or us just down by a few. And so seeing the momentum everywhere we're going on the ground, we obviously have been up on TV for the last couple of weeks. We've been in everybody's mailboxes. So this campaign is touching people all across the state. And so we know that this poll is showing the momentum that we're feeling.
So during this campaign speech today, you talked a lot about Ron DeSantis and President Trump. But what separates you from Chris?
Everything separates me from Charlie Crist. First and foremost, I have been a Democrat since I was 17 years old. I'm not a career politician. I haven't been doing this for 30 years. I have a new perspective on how to fix things. I have continuously showed up for the people of our state my entire life. The issues that I fight for today are the issues that I've been fighting for my whole life. When I was a kid, doing soup kitchens and Habitat for Humanity, from being a public defender, fighting for our foster care kids. So the things that I'm fighting for today are what I've been doing my entire life. And unfortunately, Charlie's been on every side of the conversation. And so voters, especially Democratic voters, are looking for somebody that they trust, somebody who has a proven track record of winning. I'm the only one who's been able to win our state as a Democrat, and they want somebody who has been a fighter who's been standing up to Ron DeSantis for 3.5 years. I have been doing that, and so I know that the voters in the Democratic primary want that champion, want that fighter, and want somebody who can beat Ron DeSantis, and that's me.
And I know I already asked this, but if you don't mind, what was your reaction to beating Charlie Crist in the recent polls?
You know, again, seeing the polls today come out showing us in the lead is exactly what we have been feeling. So having validation for what we are seeing on the ground, you know, getting all throughout social media the responses back from people that they not only just they voted, but they voted and they brought their mom and their grandmother and their family and everybody in the households are voting for us, and the responses that we're getting. Look, my entire community is voting. That's what we have been feeling, and so to see a poll coming out to show that, I know that from here until Election Day, that momentum is going to continue to increase. So we're excited that finally the polls are starting.